Hi everyone, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Nancy, and if this is your first time coming across my channel, kindly subscribe, share, and like my tutorial. So in today's class, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this kimono bubu dress. And if this is something you're interested in learning, keep on watching and let's get started. To make this dress, I'm going to be using a damask fabric, and this is the fabric I'll be using for the dress. And the amount of the fabric I'll be using is 3.5 yards. So to get started first, you're going to fold your fabric into two equal halves first, just like you see me doing. So after folding it into two, you are going to fold it again to make it a fold into four. So with this folding method, we are going to be cutting both the front piece and the back piece of the dress together. So you can see that I have it folded in four places now, and I'm going to make sure that everything is well arranged by the sides and the edges. So from the way I folded the fabric, at the top here, there won't be a need for a joining around the shoulder. So now we are going to be taking the measurements from this side. So guys, remember that from the way we folded this fabric, there won't be a joining around the shoulder. So for this reason, I placed the tape from the shoulder all the way down to mark the length of the dress. I want the length of the dress to be 62 inches. So this is 60 here. I'm going to add 2 inches to that to make it 62 inches altogether. Now I'm going to draw a straight line across this point I marked. So let's go ahead to mark the neck width. From the center fold here, I'm going to mark a neck width of 2.5 inches. For a plus size person, you can mark 3 inches. Now for the neck depth, I'm going to place my tape here to mark 1 inch, and then I'll connect the neck depth to meet the neck width this way to form a curved neckline. So the next step is to mark my shoulder measurement. My shoulder measurement divided by 2 is 7 inches. So for this style, the pleating around the shoulder did not start directly on the shoulder line. It started a little bit after the shoulder line. So instead of marking 7 inches, I'm going to add extra 1 inch to that, which would make the shoulder to be 8 inches. So I marked it here. So guys, I've gone ahead to mark my neck measurements and the shoulder measurements. Now the next thing I want to mark is how wide I want the pleat to be around the shoulder. I want the pleat to be 3 inches wide. So for this reason, since I'll be folding the fabric into two here, I'm going to place my tape from this shoulder point here to mark 6 inches. And by the time we fold this pleat, that's from this point, that shoulder point to this new point, into two, then the pleat will become 3 inches. So by the time I fold this part into two, the length of the pleat will become 3 inches. Now the next step is to mark the length of your sleeve. So from this point, I'm going to mark the length of my desired sleeve. I want the length of my sleeve to be 8 inches. So I'm going to add extra 1 inch for folding allowances. So that would be 9 inches altogether. So I marked it here. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to place my tape from the shoulder all the way down to mark my bust point. So my bust point is 10 inches. So this bust point line is going to be a guide in getting your sleeve opening. Now I'll go ahead to extend the bust point line all the way to the end of the fabric here. And then I'll connect the sleeve measurements all the way down to the bust point line, just like you see me do. So this is going to be the sleeve opening for this kaftan. So since this is a bubu dress, I'm going to be working with the widest part of my measurement, which is my hip circumference. So I'm going to divide my hip circumference into four, and then I would mark it on the bust point line. So since this is a bubu dress and it's not supposed to be fitted, you are going to be adding extra 6 inches to the hip measurement you marked initially. So once you have done that, you are going to place your tape measure from the center of the folded fabric on the bust point line to take the entire measurement here. This is 15 inches. So we are going to be marking 50 inches as it goes all the way down to the fabric. And at the hem of the dress, I'm also going to be marking 15 inches. Now I'll go ahead to connect all the points together. So I'll be connecting all the points from the bust point line all the way down to the end of the dress. So this is the armhole region here. You're going to make a curve to connect these two points together so that when stitching it will be convenient. So now we are going to be cutting out the fabric following the direction of the chalk. I would start by trimming out the neckline. So what you're going to do now is to notch the center of the neckline, and then you should also notch the side of the neckline as well. This is a very important step you should take note of. And once you are done with that, you go ahead to cut out the sleeve opening to the armhole and to the rest of the body of the dress. So once you are done cutting out the body of the dress, the next thing you need to do is to notch the center of the sleeve opening. All this is very important because this particular notch you made here would help you to identify your shoulder line. Now I'm just going to go ahead to unpin the fabric. So after unpinning the fabric, you are going to go ahead to spread out the fabric this way. Remember that we folded this fabric into four, which simply means that we are able to cut out both the front piece and the back piece of the dress together. So make sure you are spreading it out this way, and you would notice that there is no shoulder joining because of the way we folded the fabric. And that's why it's very important to make notches around the center of the neckline and the center of the sleeve so you can easily identify the shoulder line. So now the next thing we are going to be doing is to make the shoulder pleat. To do this, we are going to be working with your sleeve length measurement. Remember that when we made the markings, I marked 9 inches as my sleeve length measurement. So from the center of the sleeve opening here, I'm also going to mark this 9 inches here. And also make sure you are making these markings on the right side of the fabric. So from this point I marked, I'm going to measure how wide I want my shoulder pleat to be. So I'm going to mark 6 inches, just the way we marked when the fabric was still on fold. So now we are going to be making the first pleat. So I'm going to use my fingers to bring the 2 points together so that the fabric forms a pleat. And on this center point I chalked, I'm going to use my pin to hold the fabric together so that it forms a pleat. And once you are done with that, you go ahead to pleat the rest of the pleats, just like you see me doing. And once you are done pinning the pleats, you are going to fold in the rest of the sleeve opening inward this way. Once you're done with that, the next step is to stitch the pleats around the shoulder. So to do this, you're going to mark the length of how long you want the stitching to be. From this center point on the shoulder, I'm going to mark 5 inches at the top, and from the center point I'm also going to mark 5 inches below to connect these 2 points together. Now I would head over to my sewing machine to make a straight stitch directly on this point. Once you are done with that, the next step is to mark the pleats on this other side of the shoulder. To do this, you are also going to place your tape from the center of the sleeve opening to mark the sleeve length first, which is 9 inches. Now from this point you marked, you are going to mark how wide you want your pleats to be, which is 6 inches. This is practically what we did on the other side of the shoulder. So now you are going to use your finger to hold the fabric together this way to form the second pleat. And once you have successfully held the fabric together, you are going to use your pin to hold the pleat together, and then you hold the rest of the pleats. After holding the rest of the pleats, the next thing you are going to do is to fold in the rest of the sleeve opening inward, just like you see me doing. So now I'm going to mark 5 inches above this point and 5 inches below this point to connect the 2 points together to form a straight line. Then I'm going to head over to the sewing machine to make a straight stitch directly on this line. So make sure you are making a straight stitch directly on these two lines here. So once you are done stitching on both lines, this is how the stitching should be around the shoulder. So the stitching didn't get all the way down to the waist. It's just a short stitch that I made. That's like from here to this point, which is 10 inches altogether, even on this side as well. Once you are done with that, you are going to bring out the sleeve opening that you folded inward initially, and this is how it should be. So now I'm going to flip the fabric to the wrong side, and I would head over to my sewing machine to stitch the sleeve opening by folding it inward by half of an inch and further folding it by half of an inch, and I'll repeat the same sewing process on the second sleeve opening here. So guys, I'm done stitching the sleeve opening on both sides, and this is how it should be. So once you're done with the sleeve opening, the next thing we want to work on is to make the band, which is at the center of the dress. So this is why it's very important to always notch the neckline. So from the notch I made at the center of the neckline here, I'm going to use my chalk to make a straight line from the center here this way, and then I'll pick it. I'll use my fingers to pick the center of just one of the sides. You can see the way the fabric is. So I'm taking this part to be the front piece of my dress. You can actually use the other side because they are equal, but I'm taking this side as the front part of my dress and making sure that the sides of the front piece aligns together. So obviously you can see that the front piece is equal on the sides, and then I can easily identify the center fold of the front piece this way. So make sure that the back is also well aligned and equal. And then you should also take note of the neckline. Make sure that it is well aligned as well. Once you are done with that, so from the center of the neckline here, it is obvious that this is the shoulder line because it was notched already. That is why notching is very important. So I'll place my tape from the shoulder line all the way down. Now my waistline is 16 inches. I'm going to be adding extra 1 inch to that, and that will be 17 inches. So I'm going to mark 17 inches at this point here. So from the center of the fold here, where I marked 17 inches, I'm going to come in by 1 inch. And then I would connect this new point to meet the neck width with a straight line, and this would form a V neckline. So once this is done, at the end of the V neck here, I'm going to mark 1 inch all the way down to the end of the dress. And then I would connect the points together. So after connecting all the points together, I'm going to go ahead to trim out the center of the front piece following the direction of the chalk, just like you see me doing. So after cutting out the center front, you're going to spread out the dress this way, and this is how it should be. Now the next thing you're going to do is to take the measurement of the opening at the center front. So I'm going to start taking the measurement from the bottom here. So I'll be measuring per yard. This is 36 inches, this is 1 yard. This is another 36 inches here, and this is 2 yards. And from this point, I'm going to measure another 36 inches, and this is 3 yards altogether. So what I have left is 25 inches, and this is 3 yards and 25 inches altogether. So this simply means that the length of the band I would be working with is 3 yards and 25 inches. Now for the width of the band, I made use of 5 inches. By the time I fold it together to stitch the edges, the width of the band will become 2 inches. So now what I'm going to do now is to fold the band into two equally, making sure that the right side of the band is facing each other. So once you folded the band equally, the next thing you're going to mark is the neck opening. That's how wide you want the neck opening to be. So from the center of the fold here, I'm going to measure all the way to 11 inches. Now I'll pin the band together, and I'll head over to my sewing machine to stitch from this 11 inches point all the way down. But because there will be a center slit at the bottom, I'm going to place my tape from the bottom of the band to mark a length of 15 inches so that the stitching will stop on this 15 inches and there will be a slit at the center. So now once you're done stitching, you're going to open up the band this way, and then you'd head over to the ironing board to give the band a quick press. So this opening here is for the neck opening, while this is the slit at the bottom of the band. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to attach the band to the center front of the bubu. So to do this, you're going to mark the neckline of the center back piece, and then you would notch the center of the neckline of the band here to place it directly on the right side of the bubu, making sure that the center of the neckline is pinned on the center neckline I just marked here. And then I'll go ahead to pin the edges of the band directly on the edges of the opening in the front of this bubu dress. So once you're done pinning the band, you'd head over to the sewing machine to stitch the edges of the band to the front opening of this dress by half of an inch, following the direction of my finger. So guys, once you're done stitching the band, the next thing we're going to do is to mark the point to where the belt will be attached on the waist. So now to do this properly, from the center back of the neckline, I'm going to place my tape to measure all the way down to our waistline. Our waistline measurement is 16 inches, so I made the point at the center of the band here. Now, so around waist measurement is 30 inches. You're going to divide that 30 inches into 4, and what you get is 7.5 inches. So from the center of the band here, you mark 7.5 inches on that side, and you also mark 7.5 inches on this other side as well. So now I've gone ahead to make the belt. I'm going to stitch the belt directly on these 2 points I marked. So you can see that I have two belts as well. So I'm going to be pinning one of the belts directly on these points I chalked. And I would head over to my sewing machine to stitch directly on the edges of the belt on this side. Now I would also pin the second belt to these points I chopped here. And after pinning, I'll head over to my sewing machine to stitch directly on the edges of the belt. So after stitching the edges of the belt, I went ahead to serge the edges of the belt, and I also serged the edges of the band as well. So serging means weaving. After you've done that, you're going to go ahead to place the front piece of the dress directly on the back piece of the dress, just like you see me doing. So now you're going to pin the edges of both sides together, just like you see me doing. And after pinning, I'll head over to the sewing machine to stitch the edges of this dress by 1 inch, following the direction of my finger. So the final step is to fold the end of the dress. I folded the end of the dress by 1 inch, and I further folded it by 1 inch again. So I'm going to head over to my sewing machine to hold this down with a straight stitch. So guys, I've stitched the hem of the dress and you can see how neat it is. Now I'm going to turn the dress to the right side of the fabric so that you can see the final look. Thank you for watching to the very end, and I hope this tutorial was helpful. You should give it a try, and if you're new to my tutorial, please kindly subscribe, share and like my tutorials, and also put on your notification bell so you'll be the first to be notified when I upload new tutorials. Thank you, and see you in my next tutorial.